gang, it's your old buddy Platt, and today I show you how to make Viking's Blood. So let's go. So if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I've made a little bit of mead, regular mead. We've done orange mead with a kit. We've made what's called mellow mel, which is a fruit-infused mead. We've made pie mints. We made a few different varieties, and today we're going to make one of the more popular varieties of mead, and it's called Viking's Blood. Now, the name is kind of homage to Viking and Norse lore. Supposedly it's tied into the Norse god Odin, who drank some kind of alcoholic concoction made from either his enemy's blood or some other Norse god's blood or something like that, and it provided him wisdom. The reality is that Viking's Blood, the mead, came about well after the Vikings had died off. Just recorded history says that this is something that probably came out in the Middle Ages, well after the Vikings had kind of quit their raiding days. Also, too, in Scandinavia, the resources to produce this probably weren't really around. And if anybody consumed something like this, it would only have been royalty. But again, great, great little story. As far as the mead itself, the original versions of Viking Blood and the recipes were what's called a metheglin, or a spiced or herb-infused, botanical-infused mead. Over the years, though, it's kind of morphed into more of a fruit mead. Today, a lot of times, cherry meads interchangeably, the name is interchangeable with Viking's Blood. Of course, the cherry just gives that blood red color. What we're going to make today is kind of a hybrid. There is one commercial version out there that you may or may not find in your local liquor store. It's called Dansk Mod. I believe it's out of Denmark. And it's more of a metheglin or herb-infused mead. The primary herb I think they use is hibiscus, and we're going to start with that today. So real quick, just kind of go over what we need for this mead. I'm using a strawberry hibiscus tea you can find at a big box store. The tea bags just make our lives easier, and I'm always about that. Next, like I said, a lot of people will use cherries, but if you do research, you'll see a lot of recipes with cherries and strawberries, or cherries and blueberries, blackberry, you know. And so I picked up a 1 pound bag of just berry medley from a big box store. It has blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries, so we kind of cover the berry bases there. I have 2 pounds of raw honey, if you want to go with the clover honey or another kind of honey. If you have sources to, you know, local organic honey, then by all means go for it. I'm going to use a little yeast nutrient, just we're always trying to help the yeast. And I'm going to use something called pectic enzyme. The pectin that's in fruit, in the skin of fruit, will tend to cloud up your meads, and so that's going to help keep it clear. And then finally, I have a Lavallin wine yeast. I don't know if I'd try this with a beer yeast or any other yeast. If you have access to a wine yeast, then I would definitely suggest that. So that being said, let's make some Viking's Blood. All right, gang, so the first thing we're going to do is, of course, sanitize our fermentation vessel. We're making a 1 gallon batch, but I'm going to use my 2 gallon fermenter because I want to net 1 gallon of Viking's Blood, but I'm adding in a pound of berries. And in my 1 gallon fermenter, I just don't think I have enough headspace to allow for good fermentation, you know, to foam up. So I'm going with my 2 gallon, just going to make my life easier. So we've got our fermenter sanitizing. In my stock pot here, I have 2 quarts or half a gallon of water. I'm going to bring that to a boil, and once it boils, I'll add in my tea packets, or my little tea bags. I have about 8 of these strawberry hibiscus tea bags. You can adjust how strong you want that tea. You know, throw in extra bags, throw in less. That's up to you. I'm going with 8. Just in my research, it's kind of middle of the road. But once that comes to boil, I'll add in the tea packets. I'll turn it off, and I'll let those tea packets seep for about 30 minutes. And so we'll come back then after 30 minutes, we'll add the rest of the ingredients and finish making our Viking's Blood. All right, gang, so I've added our 2 quarts of hibiscus tea into the fermenter. I also threw in 2 quarts of just regular cold water. So we have our 1 gallon of liquid volume in the fermenter. Next, I want to add our yeast nutrient and pectin enzyme. About a half a teaspoon for each should be sufficient. course, the yeast nutrient is for our buddies, the yeast that do all the work. And once again, the pectic enzyme is to bring clarity to our finished product. You know, we don't want a cloudy finished product, so got that added. Next, we're going to add our berries. I didn't completely thaw them out because I wanted to use the cold berries to help drop our tea and everything down to proper temperature for the yeast, so I don't mind if some of the berries are still kind of frozen. We're going to add the pound there. Some recipes you'll see out there might suggest 2 pounds per gallon. I've seen some even 3, just because what they sell in the store generally is 1 pound packages. Again, just making life a little easy. Then finally, I'm going to add the honey. A little trick I do with meads is I just have a little jar of hot water, and I'll let my honey sit in that for a while just to make my life easier. And we'll go ahead and add our honey. See how it's coming out nice and quick. We get all that honey out. Alright. I'm going to stir this up for a second just to get everything mixed in, get plenty of oxygen. One of the things I suggest when doing any kind of brewing or wine or mead making is a little bit of vigorous stirring before you throw in the yeast. You want to oxidize your wort or your wine or whatever. The yeast does like oxygen. It's after fermentation you want to avoid the oxygen, but pre-fermentation, stir it up, shake it up, get that oxygen in there. Again, that's another thing the yeast really likes. So let me finish that up, and then we'll come back to wrap up the video. Alright gang, so I pitched my yeast. I used a Levelland wine yeast. You want roughly about 2 to 3 grams of yeast per gallon. The standard Levelland yeast pack is about 5 grams, so about half a pack. I know some other yeast out there use 11 gram packs, so about a quarter to a third pack of yeast. For this, we are going to let this sit in our primary fermentation for about 2 weeks. Then I'm going to transfer it to another fermenter, sorry about that, and take the physical matter of the fruit, separate that out. We're going to leave it in that secondary fermenter for about 2 months, and then I'm going to bottle, and we should have something in about 6 months. You could drink after a couple of months, but I find meads really do improve with age, and so probably 6 months before I try it, and I may let some bottles go for a full year. Plus, as far as tweaking the recipe, again, you could add some more honey to make it a little higher proof. You could add a little more fruit if you wanted a little more fruit flavor. You could also, if you have access to fresh cherries, kind of do more of a cherry mead or the cherry mead style Viking Blood. Also, too, some of the original Viking Blood recipes, and I think even Dansk Mod, I think they, besides the hibiscus, I think they also use hops, or hops have been used before in Viking's Blood. So if you want to make a hot mead Viking's Blood, then definitely feel free on that. But besides that, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or ideas for videos, please leave me in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time. Bottoms up.